Welcome to Monday Mornings with Chief of the North on RGR Football. I am Seth Kaiser, the Chief of the North, the tired Chief of the North, after a wonderful, wonderful Christmas season. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, whatever it is. Maybe you just really like Sundays. Whatever it is that you're celebrating this season, I hope you had an awesome day yesterday. I did, so I hope you did too. It's as we do every Monday here, though, because holidays wait for no man. We're here to talk about some of the takeaways from the Chiefs' win over the Seahawks yesterday. A relatively easy win, made that way partly because of how well the defense played. We're going to get to that shortly. And like I do every Monday, we try to go over a couple of the storylines that I think are kind of important coming from the game. This is a game where we didn't learn a ton of new things about the Chiefs, but I saw some stuff emphasized that in terms of the offensive side of the ball that I think it's stuff that's come up before, but I think it's really worth revisiting as we move towards the playoffs. And then the defense, well, there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about with the defense. So we're going to do that. I'm excited. It's been really, really a great weekend. I got to watch with a bunch of my family members who are Vikings fans. I got to watch the 61-yard field goal right after the Chiefs won. It was nice. A lot of very, very nice things happening. And I hope your weekend was as nice too. So the first things first that I want to talk about, well, actually, before I do that, keep in mind to do all the things that you should be doing. If you appreciate the content that I provide or the content that Ryan or Dan or Gary or any of the millions and millions of, it seems like, content providers Ryan has here at RGR Football, make sure to like, subscribe, leave a little comment, whatever it is you got to do. Do all those things because they matter. They're important. And it's important to support good work. My work, is aggressively mediocre. But the rest of the guys here, they do really good stuff, and they deserve to be supported. So the Seattle game, the first thing that I want to talk about is Patrick Mahomes, because that's almost always the first thing I want to talk about. Every week Mahomes does something relatively new. This week, the thing that he did that was relatively new was basically ignoring what the laws of physics should say about a quarterback. And it's that last moment of the play here on this touchdown scramble that they needed some points here. It was late in the fourth. They needed to put away the game. And this was, they'd struggled to really finish. They'd struggled to move the ball at times, kind of some self-inflicted error, opposed to work for anyone. Quarterbacks are not supposed to be able to score here. When you look at the angle right here that the linebacker has on him, there's absolutely no reason why Patrick Mahomes should be able to score on this play. And yet, he somehow does. And something that I talked about last week when I was making the case for Mahomes being MVP, one of them was he's also one of the very, very best scrambling quarterbacks in the NFL. You can see that borne out in the stats, expected points added per play. But more so on plays like that, where he scores or gains extra yards, where he has no business doing so. He maximizes yardage in virtually every situation, and scrambling is one of them. And that's just yet another reason. It's one of the most underrated aspects of his game. When people think of Mahomes and movement, they think of him, running around and buying time and then launching the ball, which he does. However, what he does better than almost any quarterback in the league is buys extra yards and maximizes every yard available. That's one of many reasons why he's your MVP. But the star of the game wasn't Mahomes. It was a defense that played really, really well. I'm actually in the middle of right now. By the time you see this, it'll probably be out. I'm writing an article about 3 things the Chiefs defense did a little bit differently. None of it was really schematic, by the way. This isn't like, Steve Spagnuolo finally relearned how to call plays. That's not what happened. The execution on the defense was significantly better in a myriad of ways. And just to talk about a couple of things that they did really well here, and you'll find the Chief of the North newsletter. You can check it out. The article should be out. It'll cover these things in a little more detail and actually a few other things. I'm kind of trying to do both here to talk about as much as I can with regards to what they did differently. A couple things. Nick Bolton and Willie Gay Jr. had really good games. Willie Gay Jr. in particular had a monster day, both in coverage and against the run. Nick Bolton had an excellent day overall. He got picked on a couple times in coverage, but he also made some really big stops, some big tackles. He had a couple of tackles for loss. He made some big plays down the stretch. He had a ton of tackles. Now, some of them were, I don't look at total tackles as a very good metric. Dan Sorensen led the Chiefs in tackles multiple years. That's not really a great metric for impact. But with Bolton, where you can see his impact are some of those plays where he anticipates where the play is going and makes a play in the backfield, a tackle for loss. That's a great metric for impact. And he had some great plays that way. Willie Gay Jr., though, in my opinion, had one of the better games he's had as a Chief. and made a number of impact plays all over the field. It was really impressive to see for both of them. And this defense was built to be built around those two in part. And when they play well, the entire defense benefits. The secondary, particularly the young corners and L'Jarius Sneed, who's still a young corner in his own right, he's just kind of the wily veteran among a bunch of rookies. They played a great game. They tackled extremely well. One of the advantages the Chiefs have over a lot of teams is that they've got a very physical group of corners who are more than willing to tackle in run support. They finish really well. When they have problems finishing, which they've had over the last month, it was more of an issue in the middle of the field. And that really wasn't as much of a problem here. And it was really, really nice seeing the physicality of McDuffie, Watson, Williams, all of them, and Sneed. They all made some really important tackles, where you stop it for exactly as many yards. Now, the defense had been struggling to finish over the last month, and seeing them really tighten that up, not just in terms of finishing the tackle itself, but finishing the play, have everyone swarmed with the ball. It was by far the most aggressive and the fastest they've looked in at least 3 or 4 weeks. And that's going to be really important down the stretch here. Another thing that looked better was the complementary pass rush. It wasn't just Chris Jones. It was a little bit of multiple guys. It was a lot of Chris Jones, but it was a lot of other guys too. And that's always going to be that ebb and flow for the Chiefs. George Karlaftis had a couple of impressive wins. He's someone that I might look at later this week, where his ability to win one-on-one is going to be huge moving forward if he can do it. That's not something he's been good at this year, but that's the next step in development. He executes a lot of Spagnuolo stuff well. He's been a valuable player. He just hasn't been, a really, really good one. He's been, an average NFL defensive lineman who does a few things well. That's really impressive for a rookie. Now it's whether or not he can take that next step, like he did a few things really well on Sunday, get a few more of those quick one-on-one wins, keep learning to free his hands quickly, to try to add a little bit of an edge rush with a rip move to his arsenal. That's going to be huge for a guy who's largely a power-based player. If you add even the threat of getting around the edge, that opens up those power moves a lot better. And so that's fun to watch. Another thing that I thought was fun to watch was, once again, Isaiah Pacheco and Jerick McKinnon both playing well. The Chiefs running back situation right now is as good as it's been since Kareem Hunt. Pacheco's a gifted runner. He's done really, really well for them in that area. He's the best runner they've had since Hunt by a pretty wide margin. I like Damian Williams a lot. He was more of like a Jerick McKinnon plus. That was Damian Williams, because he's just a little bit bigger and a little more situational. He could do a few more things. But Jerick McKinnon has come in and replaced some of those things that Damian Williams did so well as a receiver and as a pass blocker. And you can see the value in a guy who executes those screens, those quick throws so well. And it's really got the Chiefs running back situation in the best. It's the best it's been in years. And it matters. The individual running backs don't move the needle a ton, depending on, but they do move the needle a little. And you can see, with the Chiefs offense, you're stacking stuff upon stuff upon stuff that works. And so that's been fun to watch. A little less fun thing, Justin Watson had a tough day. He had a pass knocked away that he maybe could have gotten in there and contested, if you want to call it that way, a little bit better, trying to bring it down on a deep ball. Great play by Woolen to knock it down, but he also he could have done maybe a better job fighting for it a bit. He also had a couple of passes that he really should have brought in that he dropped. That's an area of concern I continue to have. I understand they like Justin Watson. I understand they like the way that he executes the offense. But right now, every time, for the most part, Sky Moore gets on the field as a receiver, he's had a few rough moments as he's kind of ironed out his skill set, where, he didn't bend a route far enough and then it ended up with a pick. I understand some of those issues, but he also is very clearly superior in terms of creating separation and hands. And I got to be honest, and with the ball in his hands as well. And so for me, I understand issues of trust. I understand, okay, we got our other playmakers here. We just want a guy we can really rely on. But, man, it's tough watching them keeping a talented player like Moore kind of on the sideline to an extent. And that's something that I hope they look at more moving forward. The playoffs are looming, and it's going to be really interesting over the next couple of weeks to see not just how things play out. The Chiefs end up with the 1 seed or the 2 seed. Those are pretty much their options right now. I mean, barring them losing out and like the Bengals winning out, and the Bills winning all their games except against the Bengals. There's a few things that could happen there that could put them in the 3 seed. It's not super likely. If the Chiefs win out, they're either the 1 seed or the 2 seed, which means this week we are all Bengals fans, which feels strange. But if nothing else, if they beat the Bills and everything works out to where the Chiefs are hosting them at Arrowhead in another AFC Championship game, that would be a lot of fun just because all the hype about, oh, they've beaten the Chiefs so many times, all that would be fun. It would add to the narrative. It would add to the fun. I just know that, man, the Chiefs defense looks like maybe it's rounding into shape. The Seahawks didn't have Tyler Lockett, but they still are a good offense. Geno Smith has been playing well, and Metcalf is obviously a monster receiver. So I would say that might be their best defensive performance of the year. And it'll be interesting to see if they can build on that next week, particularly in the areas that they looked improved. That's what I've got for you today. I hope you've got the day off. If you don't, I hope you just find some time to relax anyway. Either way, it's a great week to be a Chiefs fan. I appreciate you joining.